I was 14 years old when my parents slid a stack of legal documents across our dinner table and told me I had 48 hours to sign over my grandfather's $600,000 trust fund to save their failing real estate business, or they would throw me out of the house. My grandfather had died 6 months earlier, leaving strict instructions that the money was mine and couldn't be touched until I turned 25. Sitting there, staring at those papers, I finally understood they had never really seen me as their son. I was just an asset. The silence that followed felt like it could suffocate me. My mother, Susan, leaned forward with that familiar fake smile she used with difficult clients. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the wooden table. "Atlas, honey, you need to understand what's at stake here," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "We built our business from nothing. Everything we have, everything you have, comes from that business. If we lose it, we lose the house, the cars, everything." My father, Donald, wasn't even trying to be nice. He sat back in his chair, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "Your grandfather left you that money, but he's gone now. We're your parents. We're the ones who put a roof over your head, food on your table. You owe us." I wanted to laugh at that. Food on the table? They were barely home for dinner. Most nights I made myself ramen or cereal. The roof over my head? I spent more time alone in this house than with them. They were always at the office, always at showings, always at meetings. My entire childhood had been a series of empty rooms and unanswered questions about when they'd be home. "Grandpa specifically said this money was for my future," I managed to say, my voice shaking. "He told me not to let anyone take it." Donald's face turned red. "Your grandfather was a stubborn old man who never understood business. He worked his whole life at that factory and died with nothing but that money. We're trying to build something bigger, something that could set our whole family up for generations, by taking money that isn't yours." The words came out before I could stop them. My mother's smile vanished. "Watch your tone. We're not taking anything. We're asking you to invest in your family's future. Besides, you're 14. What do you know about managing that kind of money? You'd probably waste it all on video games and sneakers." That night, after they went to bed, I sat in my room with my laptop and started researching. The trust fund documents were in a safe in my father's office, but I remembered the name of the bank. First National. The trustee's name was Raymond Cole. I found articles about trust funds, about how they worked, about legal protections for minors. What I learned made my stomach drop and my hope rise at the same time. My parents had absolutely no legal access to my trust fund. The trustee wouldn't release a single penny until I turned 25, unless I died or became legally incapacitated. My grandfather had set it up that way specifically to protect it from exactly this situation. They were bluffing about the legal papers, but they weren't bluffing about throwing me out. I thought about my grandfather's last days in the hospital. He'd grabbed my hand with surprising strength, pulled me close, and whispered, "Atlas, listen to me. This money is for your future, not theirs. They'll try to take it. They've always been more interested in dollars than people. Don't let them. Promise me." I'd promised, and I intended to keep that promise. Over the next day and a half, I made a plan. I couldn't stay here. If they couldn't manipulate me into signing, they'd make my life so miserable, I'd have no choice. I knew my parents. They didn't give up on deals. I found my old backpack from middle school, the one I'd stopped using when they bought me a designer one to look more presentable. I packed clothes, my grandfather's watch that he'd given me on my 13th birthday, my birth certificate and social security card from the filing cabinet in the study, my phone charger, and a notebook. From my desk drawer, I counted out $217 in cash, money I'd saved from mowing lawns and shoveling driveways over the past 2 years. At 2:30 in the morning on the second night, I wrote a note and left it on my bed. "I won't betray Grandpa's wishes. I'm sorry you can't understand that." I crept down the stairs, each creak of the old wood sounding like a gunshot in the quiet house. My hand was on the front doorknob when the living room light clicked on. "Going somewhere?" My father stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas, arms crossed. His face wasn't angry. It was cold, calculating. That was somehow worse. "You can't keep me here," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'm not going to." He walked closer, and I instinctively stepped back. "You want to leave? Leave. See how long you last out there. A kid your age, no money, no family, no friends willing to risk harboring a runaway. You'll be back in a week, maybe less. Hungry, scared, desperate. And when you come back, you'll sign those papers. You'll realize we were right all along." He opened the front door for me. A mocking gesture of courtesy. 14 years old and you think you're a man? Go ahead. Prove it. I walked past him, down the driveway, and into the dark suburban street. I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard the door close, then lock. The sound of that deadbolt sliding into place felt like the period at the end of a sentence. I was alone. The first 3 days were the hardest of my life up to that point. I had no idea how hard things could actually get. I slept in Riverside Park, the one near the old industrial district. It had thick bushes where I could hide my backpack during the day and sleep at night without being too visible. The September nights were getting cold, and I only had a thin jacket. I'd wake up shivering, my back aching from sleeping on the ground. During the day, I went to the public library. It opened at 9 in the morning, and I'd be there right when the doors opened. I used the bathroom to wash my face and hands, trying to look presentable. I'd spend hours on the computers, researching my options, trying to figure out what to do next. I ate from convenience stores, cheap stuff that stretched my money. Granola bars, peanut butter crackers, fruit cups. I was down to $143 by the third day. That's when Patricia noticed me. She was a librarian, probably in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun and glasses on a beaded chain. She worked the reference desk, and I'd seen her help people find books and use the computers. On my third day there, she approached me during my lunch break, when I was eating crackers in the reading section. "You've been here every day this week," she said gently. "Before 9, and staying until we close at 8. I didn't know what to say. Was she going to kick me out? Tell me to leave? "I'm just studying," I lied. She sat down across from me. "In September? School started 2 weeks ago." I looked down at my crackers, my face burning. "I'm Patricia," she said, "and you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. But I want you to know that if you need help, real help, there are people who care. I care." Over the next few days, Patricia became my lifeline. She never pushed, never demanded answers. She'd bring me sandwiches from home, saying she'd packed too much lunch. She let me charge my phone at the reference desk. She showed me which bathrooms had the best soap and towels, small kindnesses that made survival possible. At night in the park, I met Frank. He was a veteran, around 60 years old, with weathered skin and intelligent eyes that had seen too much. He slept under a tarp near the old pavilion. When he saw me trying to make a bed out of my jacket, he came over and showed me how to use cardboard as insulation from the cold ground. "Kid your age shouldn't be out here," he said, his voice rough from years of smoking. "You're going to attract the wrong kind of attention. Predators look for young ones like you. You need to find actual shelter." "I can't go home," I told him. "Figured that much. But there's other options. Shelters, youth services. Somebody's got to help." I'd thought about child services, about the police, but I was terrified they'd send me back to my parents. What would I even say? They didn't hit me. They didn't starve me. They just wanted money that wasn't theirs. Would anyone even believe me? On my 10th day at the library, Patricia asked if we could talk privately. We went into one of the study rooms, and she closed the door. "Atlas, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you in trouble at home?" The concern in her eyes broke something in me. I started crying, really crying, for the first time since I'd left. And I told her everything, about my grandfather, about the trust fund, about my parents' ultimatum, about living in the park. Patricia listened to all of it, her expression shifting from concern to anger to determination. "You can't keep living like this," she said firmly. "It's not safe. It's not healthy. My son Gregory just moved out last month. I have a spare room in my basement. It's small, but it's warm and dry. You can stay there while we figure out what to do properly. We'll find you help. Real help. Legal help if we need to. I couldn't believe it. A safe place to sleep. A real bed. I can work, I said quickly. I can help around the house. Do yard work. Whatever you need. We'll work something out, she said. But right now, let's just get you somewhere safe. That afternoon, I moved into Patricia's basement. It was exactly as she'd described. Small, a bit musty, but there was a bed, a lamp, a little space heater. To me, it felt like a palace. Patricia made me dinner, real food, and I ate until I thought I'd burst. She washed my clothes. She let me take a hot shower that lasted 20 minutes. For 2 weeks, life felt almost normal again. I helped Patricia with yard work, raking leaves, trimming hedges. She taught me how to cook simple meals. We'd watch game shows in the evening, and she'd tell me stories about her son Gregory, who was working as an electrician in Columbus. She never pressured me about what came next, but I knew we'd have to figure something out eventually. I made one mistake. One stupid, thoughtless mistake. I called my old friend Jake. We'd been best friends since 3rd grade, and I missed him. I missed normal life. I used Patricia's landline, and we talked for almost an hour. He asked where I was, and I told him I was safe but couldn't say more. He understood. Jake was a good friend. On day 16, I came back from the library to find my parents' silver sedan in Patricia's driveway. My blood turned to ice. I almost ran, but where would I go? I crept up to the window and looked inside. They were all in the living room. My mother was crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My father was talking earnestly, his hands gesturing. Patricia looked confused and deeply uncomfortable. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught fragments through the window. Zoe worried sick, troubled, for months. Stole money from us before he left. Not thinking clearly, just want our son home safe. I watched Patricia's face change. She'd believed me. I could tell, but my parents were good. They'd spent years selling houses, convincing people, closing deals. They knew exactly how to perform sincerity. I had no choice. I opened the front door and walked in. Atlas! My mother jumped up, rushing toward me. I stepped back instinctively. She stopped, her face crumbling in fake hurt. Baby, we've been so worried. We love you. Please come home. Patricia, my father said, turning to her with a serious expression. We're so grateful you kept him safe. We've been searching everywhere, but he's a minor. And as his parents, we need to take him home now. I'm sure you understand the legal complications of housing someone else's child without permission. Patricia looked at me, then at my parents, then back at me. I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to help, but she was scared. Scared of legal trouble, scared of doing the wrong thing, scared of being manipulated. Is this true, Atlas? She asked softly. About the stealing? No, I said. But my voice came out weak. They're lying. Atlas has been having some mental health struggles, my father said smoothly. We've been working with a therapist. Running away was part of that. We don't blame you for believing him. He can be very convincing. I want to help you, Patricia said to me, her voice breaking. But I can't keep you here if your parents want you home. I could get in serious trouble. Patricia, please, I started. But what could I say? How could I prove my parents were lying? Get your things, son, my father said, his voice leaving no room for argument. I went down to the basement, packed my backpack with shaking hands. When I came back up, Patricia hugged me tightly. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. The drive home was silent. My parents didn't speak until we pulled into our driveway. Then my mother turned around in her seat. That was quite a little adventure, wasn't it? Did you enjoy playing homeless? The coldness in her voice made my skin crawl. This was the real her, not the crying mother from Patricia's living room. We're done playing games, Atlas, my father said. Things are going to be different now. I had no idea how different they were about to become. For exactly 24 hours, my parents acted like nothing had happened. They made dinner, asked about my day, smiled pleasant smiles. It was terrifying in its normalcy. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped the next evening. I came home from the bathroom to find my bedroom door had a new addition, a lock on the outside. My phone was gone from my desk. My grandfather's watch was gone. I searched frantically through my drawers and found my birth certificate and social security card missing. My mother appeared in the doorway. "We're keeping these safe for you," she said sweetly. "You've proven you're not responsible enough to have them. This is for your own protection, honey. You're clearly not stable." "You can't lock me in my room," I said, my voice rising. "That's illegal." "Is it?" My father joined her. "We're responsible for your safety. If you're a danger to yourself, running away, making poor decisions, we have every right to ensure you don't hurt yourself." Over the following weeks, my prison sentence began in earnest. They brought in a family therapist named Dr. Helen Morse. She was in her 40s, professional-looking, with a practiced, sympathetic expression. She met with all of us together first, then wanted to see me alone. "Atlas, your parents are very concerned about you," she began, pen poised over her notepad. "Running away from home is a serious cry for help. Can you tell me why you felt you needed to leave?" I tried to explain. About the trust fund, about my grandfather's wishes, about years of neglect, about their ultimatum. She took notes, nodding occasionally, but I could tell she wasn't really listening. She'd already formed her opinion based on whatever my parents had told her. "It's natural for teenagers to feel misunderstood," she said, "and grief over losing your grandfather is certainly affecting your judgment. It sounds like your parents are trying to include you in important family decisions, and you're interpreting that as pressure. Have you considered that they might actually know what's best?" "They want to steal my inheritance," I said flatly. She wrote something down. I saw the words persecution complex upside down on her pad. Then came the lawyer. Craig Winters was slick, expensive-looking, the kind of attorney who probably charged $500 an hour. He sat in our living room with a briefcase full of documents. "Atlas, I'm here to help your family navigate a difficult situation," he said. "Your parents have significant debts, $230,000 across various loans and credit lines. Their business is in trouble. Without an infusion of capital, they'll lose everything, including this house." "That's not my problem," I said. He smiled not unkindly. "Actually, it is. You're a minor. If your parents lose their home, you lose your home. You'd end up in foster care. Is that what you want? Better than giving them money that's not theirs. That's where things get complicated." He opened his briefcase. "Your parents are exploring options for legal guardianship of your financial assets. With the proper medical documentation showing you're not capable of making sound financial decisions, a court could appoint them as your financial guardians until you reach adulthood." My stomach dropped. "You can't do that. It's difficult, but not impossible. Which is why we're hoping to resolve this without legal intervention. Sign over a portion of the trust, enough to save the business, and everyone wins." "No." My father's jaw clenched. "Then we'll do it the hard way." They pulled me out of school. Told the administration I was being homeschooled due to emotional difficulties. In reality, I sat in my room all day, isolated, with nothing but my thoughts and growing despair. They let me out for meals, for bathroom breaks, and for the weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Morse. Each session, she asked leading questions designed to make me look unstable. She'd ask about my anger toward my parents, my inability to understand complex family dynamics, my irrational attachment to money over family. I tried to stay calm, to answer rationally, but I could feel the trap closing around me. 6 weeks into my captivity, during a therapy session, Dr. Morse slid a paper across her desk toward me. "Atlas, this is just a treatment consent form. Standard procedure. It allows me to provide you with more comprehensive care." Something in her voice felt wrong. I picked up the paper and read it carefully. It wasn't a treatment consent form. It was a psychological evaluation stating that I exhibited signs of oppositional defiant disorder, inability to process complex financial concepts, and diminished capacity for sound judgment regarding significant decisions. The conclusion recommended that my parents be appointed as my financial guardians. "I'm not signing this," I said. "It's really in your best interest," Dr. Morse said. "Your parents only want to help you. How much are they paying you?" Her professional smile faltered for just a second. That was all the confirmation I needed. She wasn't a neutral therapist. She was working with my parents, building a legal case against me. "I'm not signing anything," I repeated, standing up. That night, my parents showed their true colors. My father came to my room after midnight, unlocked the door, and walked in. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. "You think you're smart," he said quietly. "You think you can outsmart us. But you're just a kid, Atlas. A stupid, stubborn kid. Your grandfather filled your head with nonsense about integrity and principles. You know what those things get you? Nothing. We've worked too hard to let a 14-year-old ruin everything." "I'm 15 now," I said. "My birthday was last week." He actually laughed. "Was it? Guess we forgot. Proves my point. You're nobody. Nothing. Just an obstacle we need to remove." He left, locking the door behind him. I lay awake for hours, terrified and furious in equal measure. The next 2 days they didn't bring me food. 3 meals, skipped. When I pounded on the door asking for something to eat, my mother's voice came through calm and cold. "Tough love, sweetheart. When you're ready to talk seriously about the trust fund, we'll talk about dinner." By the 3rd day, dizzy with hunger, I almost gave in. I almost called out that I'd sign whatever they wanted. The only thing that stopped me was remembering my grandfather's face, his final words, his trust in me. They finally brought me a sandwich. I ate it in 6 bites. "Ready to be reasonable yet?" my father asked. Never, but I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold out. They were breaking me down, piece by piece, and we all knew it. 2 months into my captivity, something unexpected happened. I discovered my bedroom window lock was broken. It had been broken for years, actually, the latch never quite catching right. But my parents had boarded up the window from the outside after the Patricia incident. What they didn't know was that one board was loose. During a storm, the wind had worked it free just enough that I could push it open if I tried hard enough. At first, I was too scared to try. Where would I even go? But the isolation was destroying me. I needed to do something, anything, or I'd lose my mind. So one night at 1:30 in the morning, I pushed the board aside, opened the window, and climbed out into the cold October air. I ran. There was a 24-hour diner about 3 miles from my house, a place called the Sunrise that my grandfather used to take me to for pancakes. I ran the whole way, terrified someone would see me, that my parents would wake up and notice I was gone. The diner was nearly empty. A tired-looking waitress named Carla barely glanced at me when I came in, ordered a coffee, and asked if they had Wi-Fi. They did. For 3 hours I researched. I looked up my legal rights, trust fund protections, how conservatorships worked. I learned that what my parents were trying to do was extremely difficult without concrete evidence of mental incapacity. I learned that trust funds like my grandfather's had protections specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of manipulation. And I found the name I'd been looking for. Raymond Cole, trustee at First National Bank. My grandfather's friend. The man holding the keys to my inheritance. I used the diner's phone, telling Carla it was an emergency. I called the bank's main number and left a message for Mr. Cole, explaining who I was, and that I needed to speak with him urgently about my grandfather's trust. 2 nights later, he called me back at the diner. I'd given them that number, hoping he'd understand. "Atlas?" His voice was kind, concerned. "Your grandfather was one of my dearest friends. I was devastated when he passed. He talked about you constantly. Are you all right?" I told him everything. About my parents, about Dr. Morse, about being held prisoner in my own home. He listened without interrupting. "I knew this might happen," he finally said. "Your grandfather was worried. That's why he structured the trust the way he did. Atlas, listen to me carefully. Your parents have zero legal access to that money. The trust is ironclad. Any attempt to gain guardianship would require them to prove you're completely incompetent, which you clearly are not. But they have a therapist writing fake evaluations, I said. Then we need to fight back with the truth. I can't give you legal advice. I'm just a banker. But I know someone who can help. Her name is Diana Ruiz. She's an attorney who specializes in protecting minors from financial abuse. She does pro bono work. I'm going to call her, tell her about your situation. Will you meet with her? Yes, I said immediately. Yes, please. Atlas, your grandfather made me promise to protect you if he couldn't. I'm keeping that promise. Stay strong. 3 nights later, I snuck out again to meet Diana Ruiz at the sunrise at 2 in the morning. She was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She ordered coffee and got straight to business. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. I did. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, and her expression grew darker as the story unfolded. This is financial abuse, false imprisonment, and child endangerment, she said. We can fight this, but I need you to document everything. Keep a record of every meal they skip, every time they lock you in, every threat they make. We'll need evidence. I've been writing things down, I said, hiding the journal under a loose floorboard. Good. Keep doing that. I'm going to start building a case. We'll need to involve Child Protective Services eventually, but we need to be strategic. Your parents have money for good lawyers. We need to be smarter. She handed me her business card. Call me from this number anytime. I don't care what time it is. If you're in immediate danger, call 911 first, then call me. Understand? I nodded, feeling hope for the first time in weeks. That's when headlights flooded the parking lot. My father's car. My mother was with him. They must have installed some kind of tracker in my shoes. I'd been so careful, but not careful enough. They stormed into the diner. My father's face was purple with rage. What the hell do you think you're doing? Diana stood up, placing herself between me and them. I'm Diana Ruiz, attorney at law, and you need to back away from my client. Your client? He's 15 years old. He's our son. We're taking him home, and if you try to stop us, we'll have you arrested for interfering with parental rights. Call the police, Diana said calmly. Please. I'd love to explain to them how you're holding your son prisoner and attempting to steal his inheritance through fraudulent psychological evaluations. My mother grabbed my arm. We're leaving. Now. Diana handed me her card again, pressing it into my hand. Call me any time, Atlas, day or night. I will help you. My father snatched the card from me and tore it into pieces, letting them fall to the diner floor. They dragged me to the car. On the drive home, neither of them spoke. The silence was worse than yelling. When we got home, my father went straight to the garage and came back with boards and an electric drill. He boarded up my window properly this time, every crack sealed. The sound of the drill was like a funeral dirge for my hopes. No more adventures, my mother said. We've been too soft on you. That's changing. The trap wasn't just tight now. It was sealed shut. 3 weeks passed. I was still 15, trapped in a room that felt smaller every day. The situation had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined. My parents filed for emergency conservatorship with the county court, claiming I was a danger to myself. They submitted Dr. Morse's fraudulent evaluation as evidence. A court date was set for 3 weeks out. My mother explained this to me through the locked door, her voice cheerful, as if discussing something pleasant. The judge will see that we're just trying to protect you. Dr. Morse's evaluation is very thorough. You've got oppositional defiant disorder, possible early onset schizophrenia, with paranoid delusions about us trying to steal from you. It's all very sad, really. That's a lie, and you know it, I shouted through the door. Is it? You ran away from home. You've been hostile and aggressive. You refuse reasonable requests. That's all documented now. Once the judge appoints us as your guardians, we'll have full control of your finances. For your own good, of course. Food became even more scarce. They brought me 1 meal a day, sometimes. Enough to keep me alive, but not healthy. I was losing weight, getting weaker. My clothes hung loose on my frame, Sometimes my mother would open the door and try a different tactic. She'd sit on my bed, stroke my hair like she had when I was little and had nightmares. "This can all stop, baby. Just sign the papers. We're not monsters. We love you. The business will succeed. We'll have money again. Things will go back to normal. You can have your phone back. Your freedom. We'll be a family again. All you have to do is help us." It was tempting. The manipulation was sophisticated, switching between cruelty and false affection, breaking me down, building me up, breaking me down again. Classic abuse tactics. Though I didn't know the terminology then. I just knew I was drowning. One particularly bad night, after 3 days of minimal food and no human contact, I found myself staring at those legal papers they'd left on my desk. My hand actually reached for the pen. I could end this. I could make it stop. Then I remembered the funeral. My grandfather's casket, flowers everywhere, people saying kind things about a man who'd worked 40 years at a factory and died with enough money to change one life. Mine. The lawyer had read his letter aloud to the small gathering. "To my grandson Atlas, I leave my entire estate in trust. Atlas, if you're hearing this, I'm gone, but my love for you isn't. This money represents every hour I worked, every sacrifice I made, every hope I had. I worked for it honestly, lived within my means, and saved it carefully. I'm giving it to you not because you're entitled to it, but because I believe in who you can become. Use it wisely. Use it for education, for opportunity, for building a life of integrity. Don't let anyone tell you that family loyalty means abandoning your principles. Real family doesn't demand that kind of sacrifice. I love you, son. Make me proud." I pulled my hand back from the pen. I couldn't betray him. I wouldn't. That night, desperate for anything to break the monotony, I started picking the lock on my bedroom door with a paperclip I'd found under my bed. YouTube tutorials I'd watched months ago came back to me. It took 2 hours, but finally I felt the lock turn. I crept through the dark house to my father's office. The door was unlocked, surprisingly. Maybe they thought the bedroom lock was enough. I used my father's desk lamp, keeping the light dim, and started searching. His desk drawers were mostly mundane. Bills, business documents, client files. But then I found the locked drawer on the bottom right. It took me 20 minutes to pick that lock too. My hands shook the whole time. Inside, I found my phone. Dead, but there. My birth certificate and social security card, and my grandfather's watch. I clutched it like a lifeline, then remembered the secret he'd told me about. The watch was old-fashioned, the kind that opened. I'd never thought to open the back before, but my grandfather had said, "If anything ever happens to me, remember the watch. It has my heart in it." I used a butter knife from my pocket and carefully pried open the back casing. Inside, folded impossibly small, was a piece of paper. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. It was my grandfather's handwriting. "Atlas, if you're reading this, they've come for the money. I hoped they wouldn't, but I knew them better than I wanted to admit. My daughter married a man who sees the world in terms of profit and loss, and she became like him. I'm sorry you have to deal with this, but listen, this trust has special protections. If anyone tries to access it through coercion, manipulation, or fraudulent legal means, the trustee has the authority to freeze the account and report to state banking authorities and law enforcement. Raymond Cole knows this. He's watching. If you're in trouble, contact him. Tell him about any threats, any pressure, any lies. He has the power to protect you and to expose them. You are not alone. This battle isn't just yours. I'm fighting alongside you, even from beyond. Stand strong. You have more allies than you know. I love you more than words can say. Make your own path, not the one they want for you. Grandpa. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept searching the drawer and found something else. Documents. Lots of them. Financial records showing my parents had been lying to their creditors about income. Forged signatures on loan applications. False financial statements. They weren't just trying to steal my money. They were committing active fraud. I found an old digital camera in the desk and photographed everything. Every document, every false signature, every piece of evidence. I didn't know what I'd do with the photos yet, but I knew I needed them. I was putting the camera back when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I froze. The office door opened. My mother stood there in her bathrobe, backlit by the hallway light. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then she looked at the open drawer, at the documents scattered on the desk, at the camera in my hand. Her face didn't show shock or anger. It showed calculation. She stepped into the office and closed the door softly behind her. When she spoke, her voice was eerily calm. "You found the evidence. Smart boy. I always knew you were intelligent. Too intelligent for your own good, maybe. You've been committing fraud," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We've been surviving. There's a difference. Business is complicated, Atlas. Sometimes you have to be creative with paperwork to keep things moving. It's not personal. It's just economics. It's illegal. So is breaking into your father's office. So is stealing documents. Who do you think the police will believe? Respected business owners, or a troubled runaway teenager with a history of making false accusations?" My stomach sank. She was right. Without credibility, the evidence meant nothing. "Here's what's going to happen," she continued, sitting on the edge of the desk. "Tomorrow morning, we're taking you somewhere. It's called Ridgeview Behavioral Center. It's a facility for troubled teens about 3 hours from here. You'll stay there until you turn 18, completely isolated, no contact with the outside world, receiving treatment for your various disorders. You can't do that. We can and we have. The paperwork is already filed. Dr. Morse has provided extensive documentation of your deteriorating mental state. We have video evidence of you breaking into this office tonight." She gestured to a small camera in the corner of the ceiling I hadn't noticed. "You forced our hand. We have to protect you from yourself. Unless," she smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Unless you sign over the trust tonight. Right now. We'll forget about Ridgeview. You can live here, finish school normally, and this all goes away. The choice is yours. You have until 6 a.m. to decide." That's when the transport van arrives. She stood up, walked to the door, then paused. "I'm locking this door from the outside. Think very carefully about your next 7 hours, Atlas. They'll determine the next 3 years of your life." The door closed. The lock clicked. I was trapped in my father's office with evidence of their crimes, and no way to use it. I had 7 hours to figure out how to escape a trap that had taken months to build. I sat in that office, surrounded by darkness and documents, and realized something important. I was done being reactive, done being the victim. I had 7 hours, and I was going to use every single minute. The office computer was old but functional. I turned it on, praying my father hadn't changed his password. He hadn't. He used the same password for everything. Susan 1970, 9, my mother's name and birth year. Sloppy and arrogant. I created a new email account under a fake name. Then I uploaded every single photo from the camera to that email. The forgeries, the false financial statements, the loan fraud, everything. I sent copies to 3 addresses, one to Raymond Cole at First National Bank, one to Diana Ruiz's law office that I found through a web search, and one to myself at the new email address. In the email, I wrote everything. The coercion, Dr. Morse's fraudulent evaluation, the isolation, the food deprivation, the threats about Ridgeview. I included dates, times, specific details. I wrote it like a legal testimony, because that's what it would need to be. Then I searched my father's office files for Diana Ruiz's torn business card. I couldn't find it, but I found her number online. I called from the office phone at 4:30 in the morning. She answered on the 3rd ring. Voice groggy but instantly alert when she heard my voice. "Atlas? What's wrong?" I explained everything in rapid fire. The 7-hour deadline, Ridgeview, the evidence I'd found, the emails I'd sent. "I'm calling the police right now," she said. "Stay on the line with me." "No. If you call the police, my parents will say I'm having a breakdown. They have videos of me breaking into the office. Dr. Morse's evaluation. I'll look crazy. We need something bigger." What are you thinking? Can you call Raymond Cole? Right now? Tell him to check his email and contact whoever he needs to contact at the bank. If the trust has protection clauses like my grandfather said, if there's potential fraud, the bank has to investigate, right? Yes. But that takes time. Then we make time. I'm not getting in that van at 6 a.m. I'm going to the police myself. I'm going to walk in there and report everything before my parents can spin it. I need you to meet me there. Can you do that? I'm getting dressed right now. Which police station? The main one on Riverside Drive. I'll be there by 5:30. Atlas, be careful. If your parents catch you before you get there, they won't. I hung up and looked at the office window. It was first floor, facing the backyard. I unlocked it, pushed it open, and climbed out into the cold pre-dawn air. My parents had been so focused on securing my bedroom, they'd forgotten about other escape routes. I ran. 3 miles through suburban streets, past sleeping houses and dark yards. The cold October air burned my lungs, but I didn't stop. I reached the police station at 5:27 a.m. The fluorescent lights inside were harsh after the darkness. A tired-looking desk sergeant sat behind bulletproof glass, working on paperwork. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I need to report child abuse and fraud," I said. "My name is Atlas Brennan. I'm 15 years old, and my parents are trying to steal my inheritance and have me illegally committed." He looked up, really looked at me, saw my too thin frame, my desperate eyes, my shaking hands. "Come on back," he said, buzzing me through. His name was Sergeant Amanda Price. She took me to an interview room, got me water and a granola bar, and listened as I told my story for what felt like the 100th time. But this time, someone with real authority was listening. She made calls. Woke up a family services caseworker named Margaret Brennan, contacted the state banking authority, pulled up my parents' business license, and started making notes about the fraud allegations. At 6:15 a.m., my parents walked into the police station. I heard my father's voice before I saw him, loud and demanding. "Our son is here. He's a runaway. We need to take him home immediately." Sergeant Price left the interview room. Through the window, I watched her talk to my parents in the lobby. My mother was crying again, the same performance from Patricia's house. My father looked properly concerned and parental. Then Sergeant Price said something that made both their faces change. She gestured toward the interview room where Saturday. My father's expression shifted from concern to barely controlled rage. Diana Ruiz arrived at 6:20. Professional in a gray suit, carrying a briefcase. She came straight to the interview room. "I've been on the phone with Raymond Cole," she said. "The bank is taking this very seriously. They're conducting an emergency review of the trust's protection clauses. If there's evidence of coercion, they have the legal authority to freeze the account and report to state authorities." Margaret Brennan, the caseworker, came in next. She was a heavy-set woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She sat across from me and asked gentle questions about my living situation, my health, the food restrictions. When she examined my arms and saw how thin I'd become, her expression darkened. "How much weight have you lost?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe 20 pounds. In how long?" 2 months. She made notes, her pen pressing hard enough to nearly tear the paper. At 7 a.m., my parents were allowed into the interview room, along with Sergeant Price and Diana Ruiz. The space felt cramped with all of us. "Atlas, honey, you're scaring us," my mother started. "Whatever you've told these people is true," I interrupted. "All of it." My father leaned forward. "You broke into my office. You stole documents. There are cameras, Atlas. You're making yourself look unhinged." "Then explain the documents themselves," Diana said calmly. "Explain the falsified loan applications, the forged signatures, the fraudulent financial statements. Those cameras of yours work both ways. Those are privileged business documents," my father said. "He had no right to access them. And you have no right to abuse your son," Sergeant Price said. "We're opening an investigation into allegations of child endangerment and fraud. In the meantime, Margaret will be assessing Atlas's living situation." That's when my parents played their trump card. My father pulled out a document from his jacket pocket. This is an emergency psychiatric hold order, signed by Dr. Helen Morse just 3 hours ago. Atlas is experiencing a psychotic episode. He needs immediate hospitalization for his own safety. The law requires you to enforce this. My heart stopped. A psychiatric hold. 72 hours minimum in a locked mental facility. It would destroy any credibility I had. That's fraudulent, Diana said, but I could hear the worry in her voice. It's signed by a licensed therapist based on months of documented treatment, my father countered. Check the law, officer. You're obligated to enforce mental health holds. You don't have a choice. Sergeant Price looked at the document, then at me, then back at the document. She looked torn. An ambulance was called. I watched through the window as it pulled into the parking lot. This was it. I was about to lose everything. Then the station door burst open, and Raymond Cole rushed in, followed by a man in an expensive suit and a woman carrying a federal badge. "Stop," Mr. Cole said, breathless. "Don't transport him anywhere." The woman with the badge stepped forward. "I'm Special Agent Laura Mills with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We've been investigating Donald and Susan Brennan for bank fraud for the past 6 months. We have warrants for their arrest. The psychiatric hold is part of an active pattern of witness intimidation." Everything stopped. My parents' faces went white. The man in the expensive suit stepped forward. "I'm Gerald Hunt, federal bank examiner. The trust fund in question has been frozen pending investigation of attempted financial abuse. We've reviewed the evidence provided by Atlas Brennan and bank trustee Raymond Cole. There's substantial evidence of coercion and fraud." Agent Mills approached my parents. "Donald Brennan, Susan Brennan, you're under arrest for bank fraud, wire fraud, forgery, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent." I watched as she read them their rights, watched as handcuffs went on their wrists. My father looked at me with pure hatred. My mother just looked defeated. "You've ruined us," my father said. "Everything we built, everything we worked for, gone because you couldn't help your own family. You ruined yourselves," I said quietly. "I just refused to go down with you." They were led out to separate police cars. Through the station window, I watched the cars drive away, taking my parents out of my life. Raymond Cole sat down next to me, put a hand on my shoulder. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you. You stood up for what was right even when it was hardest. That takes real courage." "What happens now?" I asked. Margaret Brennan smiled gently. "Now we find you a safe place to stay while this all gets sorted out. You're not going back to that house," Diana Ruiz added. "And we fight to make sure they never have control over you again." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 4 months passed in what felt like a different lifetime. I was living with Tom and Linda Henderson, a foster family Diana Ruiz had helped me find. They were in their early 50s, had raised 3 kids of their own who were now adults, and decided they had room in their home and hearts for more. Their house was warm, chaotic in a good way, and filled with the kind of normal family life I'd never experienced. Linda taught high school English and would help me with my homework at the kitchen table. Tom worked as a mechanic and had been teaching me about cars in his garage on weekends. They treated me like I mattered, like my opinions and feelings were valid. It was strange at first, almost uncomfortable. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to reveal ulterior motives, but they were just genuinely kind people. The legal proceedings against my parents moved forward with the grinding slowness of the justice system. Diana walked me through every step. The FBI investigation uncovered years of financial fraud. My parents had been falsifying loan applications, lying to creditors, and using shell companies to hide assets for almost a decade. The trust fund wasn't their first attempt at financial manipulation. It was just the first time someone fought back. Dr. Helen Morse lost her license to practice. The state board found she'd been providing fraudulent evaluations for money, not just for my parents, but for other clients as well. She'd built a side business of telling people what they wanted to hear in court documents. Her career was over. Craig Winters, their lawyer, was disbarred for ethics violations. He'd known about the fraud and actively helped them plan the conservatorship scheme. He tried to claim he was just following client instructions, but the evidence showed he'd been an active participant. The court proceedings were hard. I had to testify 3 separate times, reliving everything in front of judges, lawyers, and court reporters. Each time I saw my parents sitting at the defense table, and each time it got a little easier to remember they'd made their own choices. The verdict came down on a cold February morning. 6 months after that night at the police station, Diana called me at school, told me to meet her at the courthouse after classes ended. In the courtroom, the judge read the verdict with careful precision. Guilty on 12 counts of fraud. Guilty on 3 counts of child endangerment. Guilty on 2 counts of attempted theft. My father received 4 years in federal prison. My mother received 3 years plus 5 years of probation. They lost all parental rights permanently. The court ordered them to pay restitution to the creditors they defrauded. Their business was dissolved, assets liquidated. The house I'd grown up in was sold at auction. I didn't feel sad about that. It had never really been a home anyway. What surprised me was what came next. After the sentencing, Diana met with me and Raymond Cole in a conference room. "Your grandfather was a very thorough man," Mr. Cole said, sliding papers across the table. "The main trust remains locked until you turn 25, as specified. But there was a secondary provision I wasn't authorized to reveal until the legal issues were resolved. Your grandfather created a smaller trust, $50,000, specifically for your education and immediate living expenses. It's accessible now." I stared at the documents. $50,000. More money than I could really comprehend. "He thought of everything," I said quietly. "He loved you very much," Mr. Cole replied. "And he knew your parents better than they knew themselves." That money changed my immediate life. I could afford college application fees, SAT prep courses, a used car when I turned 16. The Hendersons refused to take money for my living expenses, but I contributed to groceries and utilities anyway. It felt important to participate, to not be a burden. School became easier once I wasn't dealing with constant crisis. My grades improved. I joined the robotics club, made actual friends for the first time in years. There was a girl named Emma in my calculus class who laughed at my terrible jokes and helped me study for tests. Normal teenage life, the kind I'd never thought I'd have. I maintained contact with the people who'd helped me. Patricia, the librarian, became like an aunt. I'd visit her at the library every week, and we'd have coffee and talk about books. Frank, the veteran from the park, I helped get into a transitional housing program. He was doing better, working part-time at a warehouse, getting his life back together. We'd meet for lunch sometimes, and he'd tell me war stories and life advice in equal measure. Diana Ruiz became more than my attorney. She became a mentor. She helped me understand the legal system, explained my options for the future, and encouraged me to think about what I wanted to do with my life. She suggested I might want to study law, to help other kids in situations like mine. The idea took root. Time passed. I turned 16, then 17. The Hendersons celebrated both birthdays with parties, cake, presents. The first time they sang happy birthday and gave me gifts, I cried. Linda hugged me and said, "You deserve to be celebrated, Atlas. You always did." My relationship with my parents ended the day they were sentenced. They wrote letters from prison, trying to justify their actions, trying to make me feel guilty. I read the first few, then started returning them unopened. Diana said I didn't owe them forgiveness, that healing meant I got to decide what relationships I maintained. I decided they'd taken enough from me. They didn't get my forgiveness, too. Now, at 18, I'm about to start college on a full academic scholarship I earned myself. The scholarship covers tuition. The secondary trust covers living expenses. I'm studying pre-law at a state university 3 hours away. Emma's going to a school nearby. We're going to try the long-distance thing, see what happens. The Hendersons are driving me to campus next week, helping me move into the dorms. Tom's already planned 3 trips back to visit and help with anything I need. Last week, I visited my grandfather's grave for the first time in months. I brought flowers, sat on the grass, and told him everything. About the trial, about the Hendersons, about my plans for the future. "You saved my life, Grandpa," I said to the headstone. Not just with the money, but with the example you set. You taught me that integrity matters more than comfort, that doing the right thing is worth the cost. I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to help other kids who are trapped like I was. I'm going to be the kind of person you believed I could be. The wind rustled through the trees, and I chose to believe it was his way of answering. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things turned out. If I wish I'd just signed the papers, taken the easy road, kept my family intact. The answer is simple: no. That wouldn't have kept my family intact because we were never really a family. Families are built on love and respect and mutual care. What we had was a business relationship where I was the asset and they were the investors. I found my real family in the people who helped me when I had nothing to offer them in return. Patricia, who fed a scared kid in a library. Frank, who shared survival tips in a park. Raymond Cole, who kept my grandfather's promise. Diana Ruiz, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Sergeant Price, who listened when she could have dismissed me. Margaret Brennan, who saw the truth. And Tom and Linda Henderson, who opened their home and hearts to a damaged teenager and treated him like he deserved love. That's what family is. Not blood, not obligation, not legal documents or shared last names. Family is the people who choose you and keep choosing you, even when it's hard. I learned something else too. I learned that suffering isn't meaningless if you use it to become stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Every night I spent hungry. Every day I spent locked in that room. Every moment of fear and desperation, all of it forged me into someone I'm proud to be. I'm not grateful for the abuse. I'm grateful I survived it and came out the other side, still believing in goodness. My grandfather left me more than money. He left me a blueprint for living with integrity. He worked 40 years at a factory, doing honest labor, saving carefully, never cutting corners or compromising his principles. He could have made more money if he'd been willing to cheat, to lie, to manipulate. But he chose the harder path because it was the right path. That's the inheritance that really matters, not the $600,000 I'll receive when I turn 25. The values he modeled, the strength he gave me, the belief that one person standing up for what's right can make a difference. To anyone listening who's trapped in a similar situation, who feels powerless against adults who are supposed to protect you but are hurting you instead, you're not powerless. Document everything. Find one trusted adult and tell them the truth. Keep telling your story until someone listens. Don't give up. Don't sign away your future because someone's threatening you. The short-term pain of standing up for yourself is worth it for the long-term freedom. And remember, the people who are supposed to love you don't threaten you, don't starve you, don't lock you up. If someone's doing those things, they've broken the relationship, not you. You don't owe loyalty to people who betrayed you first. You owe loyalty to yourself, to your future, to the person you want to become. I wear my grandfather's watch every day now. It reminds me where I came from and where I'm going. It reminds me that time passes, circumstances change, and the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn. It reminds me that I survived. And survival itself is a victory. My parents took a lot from me. They took my childhood, my trust, years of peace and stability. But they couldn't take away my integrity. They couldn't break my spirit. They couldn't force me to become like them. I chose a different path, the harder path, and that choice defined who I am more than anything they ever did to me. In a weird way, they gave me a gift, though not the one they intended. They taught me exactly what kind of person I don't want to be. They showed me that success without integrity is hollow, that money without morality corrupts, that family without love is just people living under the same roof. Those lessons, painful as they were to learn, will serve me for the rest of my life. Now, as I stand on the edge of adulthood, looking toward a future I get to define for myself, I feel something I never expected to feel. Gratitude, not for what they did, but for what I became despite what they did. Not for the pain, but for discovering I was strong enough to survive it. Not for the betrayal, but for learning who my real allies were. This is my story. It's a story about a kid who was trapped and found a way out. A story about adults who failed a child and other adults who saved him. A story about money that corrupted some people and values that sustained another. A story about losing everything and discovering what actually matters. If you've listened this far, thank you. Really, truly, thank you. Telling this story matters because silence protects abusers and isolates victims. Speaking up, sharing these experiences, that's how we help others in similar situations know they're not alone. So let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between what was easy and what was right? Have you ever stood up for your principles when everyone around you said you were being stubborn or foolish? What did that teach you about yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. We learn from each other's experiences, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, if it moved you, or made you think, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more real-life experiences about overcoming hardship and finding strength. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, someone who's going through their own struggle with family or feeling trapped by circumstances, please share this video with them. Sometimes knowing someone else survived gives us the courage to believe we can survive too. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worthy of love and respect no matter what anyone has told you otherwise. Your story isn't over. The next chapter is yours to write. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stand up for what's right. Protect your integrity. And never let anyone convince you that survival requires surrendering your soul. This is Atlas, signing off. Stay strong out there.